Asian share markets tumbled on Friday as investors took profits on technology stocks and turned defensive.
Hello, hello, hello. Let me get the music stopped. How is everybody tonight? Are we having a good one? So tonight we're going to be polyurethaning and staining the remainder of the wood coasters. So it's going to be quite a chore. I'm guessing we have probably 30 to wood stain right now, and probably another good, then a total of near about 100, 120 to either polyurethane for the first time or to put the second coat on. And I want to put 3 coats on all of them. So tonight's going to be a little bit of a problem. Give me 1 second while I open up and get some ventilation in here. Okay. Do that. Let's get some exhaust flow moving, grooving. And then I'm going to put on some videos both to react to on my behalf. Oh, I forgot something. And that'll either be fun or newsworthy or whatnot. You can look in the description of the stream and find the playlist we're shuffling to watch. You can also find our Etsy link and a couple other things. So yeah, that's that, guys. I'm gonna switch views, and then we're gonna play this.
Asian share markets tumbled on Friday as investors took profits on technology stocks and turned defensive ahead of the weekend. There was wariness of the flare-up in the Middle East hostilities, with US-Iran peace talks in limbo. The Iran-backed Hezbollah militia rejected a new ceasefire in Lebanon on Thursday, and Israel said it would not withdraw troops from the country, undermining US President Donald Trump's efforts to halt fighting there and reach a peace deal with Tehran. Meanwhile, an AI-driven sell-off after chipmaker Broadcom reported underwhelming results on Wednesday continued into a second day. All that left MSCI's broadest index of Asia-Pacific shares outside Japan down 1.8% in Asian trade. South Korea's tech-heavy Kospi plunged as much as 7%, and Japan's Nikkei fell 1.6%. Oil prices were little changed as traders awaited more clarity on US-Iran negotiations, though were set for a weekly gain as hostilities earlier in the week raised concerns of a prolonged energy shock. European shares slipped at the open and were on track to end the week marginally lower, also rattled by the uncertainty. The Pan-European Stock 600 index edged 0.2% down in early trade. Technology stocks also led declines among sectors with a 2% drop. They eased after a strong rally that's helped the shares gain over 33% in the past 2 months, the most among Stock 600 sectors.
There is currently not jet fuel shortage in Europe, and we have no signs that we will have a shortage in the coming period. And this is due mostly to the fact that we produce more than 70% of jet fuel in Europe. The main problem is indeed the price of the jet fuel, because at one point it even doubled the price before the war. Now it has de-escalated.
So here we are. Right now I'm doing the
However,
back.
this is a problem for
They
the
get a
airlines.
lighter
This is
coat
why
in the
we see,
front.
that some airlines are choosing to cancel some of their routes that didn't make any economic sense before the war even.
From SpaceX going sky high to Victoria's Secret making a comeback, this is the week in numbers. $75 billion is how much SpaceX plans to raise in its upcoming share sale. That was the word from a Reuters source. They said Elon Musk's rocket firm will sell almost 556 million shares at $135 apiece. Reuters had earlier reported the IPO would see SpaceX valued at $1.75 trillion. $965 billion is how much Anthropic's valuation surged to. It put the AI startup ahead of Sam Altman's rival OpenAI. Anthropic announced it had raised $65 billion in its latest funding round, which pushed up its value. It aims to boost computing capacity to meet growing demand for its chatbot Claude and to scale its products. About 50% is how high Victoria's Secret shares soared post-results. Investors bought in after the lingerie retailer posted blockbuster quarterly earnings and raised its annual forecasts. Revenue grew by double digits in the quarter. It follows CEO Hilary Super's efforts to stop years of falling sales by reining in discounting and leaning back into its former sexy image. 60 is how many economies the Trump administration has proposed placing more duties on imports of. It cited failures to curb trade in goods made with forced labour, which it called unreasonable and argued it restricted US commerce. The duties would reach up to 10 or 12.5% and targets major players like the EU, China, and neighbours like Mexico and Canada. It comes as the Trump administration tries to rebuild its emergency tariffs after they were struck down in February by the US Supreme Court. And up to $2 billion is how much Garth Brooks could sell his music catalogue for. That's what the Wall Street Journal reported. The country music star is known for hits like The Dance and Friends in Low Places. The Journal said the deal would cover both Brooks' songwriting and recorded music rights.
As of today, there has been one animal where we have found New World screwworm, and it's south of a city called Uvalde, Texas, which is southwest of San Antonio, so in southern Texas. As of today, we only have that one case. Now, we may see that change in the next few days. There may be additional cases identified, and that's okay. We need to know where these cases are so that we can bring the sterilized flies to these areas and suppress the flies that might be here. We can then use sterile insect technique and mass release sterilized males that will mate with the female, who only mates one time, and she then will lay unfertilized eggs, and we can get rid of this fly very quickly. That process takes several weeks to be completed. For the situation we currently have, we have sufficient flies to suppress it, but if it showed up on a wide swath of Texas, all of the flies that we're currently releasing in northern Mexico would likely be redeployed to Texas, and then that stops us from releasing flies in northern Mexico, and now the population moves closer and closer to the border.
In her Tokyo kitchen, Japanese homemaker Maki Watanabe carefully pours used cooking oil into a plastic bottle. Thanks to her frequent home cooking, she donates around 10 gallons of cooking oil a year, and it's all part of a nationwide push to turn household waste into sustainable aviation fuel, or SAF, which offers massively reduced greenhouse emissions compared to the regular stuff. Watanabe hopes more people join the effort, saying fueling jets will take huge amounts of oil. Such contributions join a growing stream of used waste collected through the Fry to Fly initiative. This comes as the Iran war disrupts global energy supplies and drives up costs for resource-poor Japan. The country is turning to ordinary consumers to help meet an ambitious target of sourcing 10% of its airline fuel from SAF by 2030. The world's fourth biggest economy estimates it will need about 450 million gallons of SAF that year. It is banking on domestically sourced used cooking oil, one of the cheapest and most accessible feedstocks. Yet progress remains painfully slow. Right now, domestic SAF production accounts for just 0.3% of Japan's jet fuel use due to limited supply and infrastructure. Yuki Nishimura from JGC Holdings' Energy Innovation Unit says geopolitical tensions are making SAF more important.
Given the current situation in the Middle East, the value of alternative fuel sources has been increasing. In fact, I believe that the value of biofuels, including SAF, are driven up by the present circumstances. Therefore, we intend to continue our efforts in this area. These initiatives are important, not only from an environmental perspective, but also because they can serve as a valuable alternative to conventional petroleum products.
Tokyo's government is stepping up used cooking oil collection from its 7.8 million households. This official says they realized residents did not know how to capture and store the waste, so they distributed 13,000 special funnels and saw collection volumes double.
This kind of thing is
But even
always
if Japan
interesting to
collected
me.
every drop of available used cooking oil, it would meet only about a quarter of the 2030 SAF.
Russian President Vladimir Putin said on Thursday that he did not rule out signing a peace deal with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky if an agreement could be reached.
There are many questions. But if at some point we go as far as to signing of documents, if there is a desire to peacefully end the armed conflict, and Russia does have this desire, we will find those who should sign the relevant documents, if there were a will to do so. Whether Mr. Zelensky is a legitimate representative of Ukraine, this is a question for the lawyers, for a legal analysis. Of course, we would wish, if ever come to signing any documents, and I think this is not a caprice of ours.
Putin's comments come as Zelensky published an open letter to him. In the message, Zelensky proposed the two leaders meet to end the war, but warned that Kiev would continue fighting otherwise. He said most Russians had grown tired of Ukrainian missile and drone attacks, as well as inflation and fuel shortages, and were ready for peace. Some Western and Ukrainian military analysts say Russia's advance has slowed significantly and argue that Russia is still a long way from achieving its own stated military goals. Zelensky proposed setting a clear date for a meeting and said several countries had traditionally hosted leaders to resolve issues of war and peace, citing Switzerland, Turkey, and countries of the Arab world. Putin's spokesman said the Kremlin chief was aware of the message, but had not yet had a chance to familiarize himself with its contents in detail. Putin on Thursday said he had emphasized to U.S. President Donald Trump last year that he was ready to end the war through diplomacy and honor unspecified compromises.
SpaceX will not be getting fast-track entry into the S&P 500 after all. On Thursday, index operator S&P Global said it would not change the rules for inclusion. The rocket firm is set for a record share listing next week. That could see it raise $75 billion and secure a valuation of $1.75 trillion, immediately making it one of America's top 10 most valuable listed firms. But S&P says it won't change the rules to allow rapid entry into its benchmark index. Among other things, that requires a firm to be profitable in its most recent quarter, and in some for its last 4 quarters. That rules out SpaceX, which posted a loss of close to $5 billion in 2025. One analyst praised S&P for standing firm, saying the rules shouldn't be bent for unprofitable firms just because they are big. The rival Nasdaq index has taken a different view, however. It has already changed its rules to allow easier access for newly listed so-called mega-cap stocks. That will force Nasdaq tracker funds to buy large sums of SpaceX shares. The same could be true for OpenAI and Anthropic if the chatbot makers proceed with hotly anticipated IPOs. Separately Thursday, SpaceX began a roadshow for investors ahead of its listing. Musk spoke to JP Morgan clients in a video interview with bank boss Jamie Dimon. Other major lenders, including Bank of America and Morgan Stanley, are hosting events over the coming days.
Are your sanctions on Cuba meant to accelerate its collapse?
No, we just want them to be a nicely run country that can feed its people. Look, it's a failed nation. The country is starving, and it's got no energy, it's got no oil, it's got no money, it's got nothing. It's got a beautiful piece of land. You could have beautiful resorts, doesn't have oil. It sort of collapsed. And we're going to handle that as soon as we finish. I like to do one thing at a time. And we'll take care of the Islamic Republic of Iran. And as soon as that's done, on our way back, we'll just make a little brief stop off. We'll take care of it. We want to help them out. But we're going to treat Cuba well, and we're going to let our people go back and let them invest in Cuba if they'd like. So we have some very good plans for Cuba. I think, we have to get rid of the regime was very tough, very nasty.
We do not believe this will be an infestation.
U.S. Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins told lawmakers on Thursday that the USDA believes it can contain a case of New World screwworm that was detected in Texas. The flesh-eating parasite was found in a calf in the southern part of the state after
flesh-eating
advancing north
parasite.
through Mexico over the past year, marking the first time in decades that it's threatened the nation's cattle industry.
The challenge is we need about 400 to 500 million flies a week to push it back, and we had gotten to the point, because no one thought it was going to be a threat again, that we were only producing 100 million a week, and that's down in Panama. So that's what we're working to solve for right now.
Ranchers and traders are on high alert for more potential cases of the devastating parasitic fly that eats warm-blooded animals alive. Wider infestations could further shrink the U.S. cattle herd, which is the smallest it has been in 75 years. The detection threatens the state's livestock industry, which experts estimated could face up to $1.8 billion in economic losses if screwworm spreads.
Oof.
You announced just a few days ago that you're naming Bill Pulte as the acting director of national intelligence. There's been a little bit of a pushback from some Senate Republicans. Why do you think, Mr. President, he's the best person for the job?
Well, he's very smart. He's a person who's got high integrity. He's done a phenomenal job at Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. And it's an acting position. It's not a permanent. He's not going to be permanent because, I don't think he'd want to be permanent. But he's a very smart guy, and he may find out some things about the rigged elections, et cetera, et cetera. I think he'd like to do it. I think he wants to do it very much. Got a lot of energy. But he'll be very good. Again, it's not a permanent position. We're interviewing people right now, but it's somebody just to take it over for a little while.
Does he have the necessary, in your view, Mr. President, the necessary national security experience to take on that position?
Well, I do, and I think he does, actually, because he's smart. Because a lot of national security, I wasn't greatly experienced in national security, and I think I've done a really great job with it. A lot of people would say that.
Hezbollah on Thursday rejected a ceasefire plan agreed by the Lebanese and Israeli governments in U.S.-mediated talks. In a written statement, Hezbollah leader Naim Qassem said, quote, "As long as the occupation exists, the resistance will continue."
As a result of U.S.-led negotiations, Israel and Lebanon agreed to the implementation of a ceasefire.
The United States announced on Wednesday that Lebanon and Israel had agreed to a truce contingent on Iran-backed Hezbollah ceasing fire and evacuating its fighters from areas of southern Lebanon near the border. State Department Chief of Staff Dan Holler.
These steps will enable progress towards a comprehensive peace and security agreement.
But Hezbollah is not a party to the talks. Qassem on Thursday called the Washington Declaration, quote, "a roadmap for the annihilation of a section of the Lebanese people and the enslavement of the rest." Qassem said a ceasefire must include southern Lebanon, where Israel has seized a self-declared security zone, which it says aims to shield northern Israel from Hezbollah attacks. Qassem said that towns in northern Israel would not be secure, quote, as long as our villages are unsafe, bombed, destroyed, and our people are being killed. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz earlier on Thursday said Israel would continue to strike Lebanon for the time being, and smoke from explosions could be seen rising beyond Israel's northern border. Hostilities between Hezbollah and Israel reignited on March 2nd when the group opened fire in support of Tehran as it came under U.S.-Israeli attack. The war has ground on despite several ceasefires declared from Washington since April and has become a sticking point in diplomacy toward resolving the regional conflict. Tehran has demanded an end to Israeli attacks in Lebanon as part of any deal.
Tomorrow these should go up on
Coca-Cola
our Etsy website, or not tomorrow for
as
sure,
the beverage
but
giant
in the next
sees some
couple
of
of
its
days.
customers are struggling with rising costs. That's what Coca-Cola's CFO John Murphy told the Deutsche Bank Consumer Conference in Paris on Thursday. Murphy said the company, which raised its annual profit target in April, was navigating the disruption from the U.S.-Israeli war on Iran, quote, not perfectly well, but without fear, without trepidation. He called the outlook in the Middle East still not clear and added it would be a focal point as the company goes into next year. Coca-Cola is leaning on a mix of pack sizes, formats, and price points from smaller, lower-cost single-serve options to larger and premium offerings to cater to a wider range of consumers, while keeping prices affordable for budget-conscious shoppers. Recent earnings from major U.S. retailers suggest consumers remain resilient but are spending more selectively. Rising gas prices linked to the Iran war and persistent inflation are weighing on budgets. Murphy said some consumers are resilient while others aren't, and pointed to those earning $50,000 to $60,000 as being under particular strain. Shares of Coca-Cola were little changed in Thursday morning trading, but have risen about 13% so far this year, slightly better than the S&P 500.
I'm just a crazy football fan who wants to go to extreme lengths to watch my team play. I'm attempting to become the first man in history to walk the entire length of America from LA to New York, coast to coast, while wearing a kilt. And we've made it here, and we're very, very close to that finish line in Boston now. But I don't just do all this because I enjoy walking very far. I try and raise as much awareness and funds for mental health in the process, and then also arrive in time for Scotland's first World Cup match in 28 years. I think that physically it takes its toll. Blisters, sore knees, bad back, all of these things that you can imagine with that level of endurance. But it's just about getting up, going again, remembering why I'm all doing it. Come on, Craigie boy!
The US side's erroneous remarks distort historical facts, smear China's political system and development path, and interfere in China's internal affairs. China is strongly dissatisfied with and firmly opposes this. We urge the United States to honor its commitment to respect China and the Chinese people, stop stoking ideological confrontation, and cease interfering in China's internal affairs under the pretext of democracy and human rights.
Host cities are shining a spotlight on their signature dishes for the upcoming World Cup, set to span Mexico, Canada, and the United States. In Mexico City, tacos are expected to be among the first stops for many visitors. At Califa de Leon, tortilla cook Carolina Gonzalez said staff were hopeful the tournament would bring extra business.
Well, now the World Cup is coming, and we hope we'll get customers, but I imagine we will, because, as you know, foreigners come for the World Cup. So I imagine there will be a lot of people, foreigners or locals, I suppose. I don't really know yet, but hopefully we'll have plenty of customers.
In Philadelphia, it's cheesesteaks taking center stage.
You want to tell them what kind of cheese you want?
At Geno's Steaks, cook Anthony Rossi says it's best to keep your orders simple.
So if you wanted an American cheesesteak with onions, you would say, give me an American with. You want American, the American without? Whiz with, whiz without? Just like that.
Canada is famous for poutine, a comfort food of fries slathered with gravy and cheese curds.
Everybody who go to Quebec or Canada say you have to try poutine.
At the Poutine Hub in Toronto, Gagandeep, the owner and chef, said they're preparing for a surge of visitors.
You know, since there's going to be a lot of people going to be visiting here in Toronto for the World Cup, so we are getting super prepared with all our team. We are making sure our team is fully prepared to serve a lot of customers.
There's many more local flavors waiting for World Cup fans. From
After
Miami's Cuban sandwiches to barbecue
couple
in
rows,
Kansas City.
then we're done with
in every case, food is one more way to showcase their identities beyond soccer stadiums.
backs of all the coasters that will be stained. The backs and sides, because I'm doing the sides now.
It's just been a total nightmare. And like Keith said, this is day 5.5, and it's like hard to even cry now because you get to a state where you're just purely numb.
When you've told this story so many times, it's
so numb.
It's easier to say these words, but you say it over and over and over.
Wow.
And then he got on the train and we started texting him like, hey, where are you going? Like, what you doing? Because we see him on Life 360. And, he doesn't respond. And I'm like, okay, he just needs space. And we just keep kind of pinging him like, hey, like, Weston, what are you doing? Like, where are you? And then his phone goes dark, like completely dark, location turned off. And that is the last time that we were able to track him.
Hi, I'm Kim Vanell in Wanganui, New Zealand. It's Thursday, June 4th, today. The US House wants its war powers back. Israel and Lebanon agree a ceasefire, while Netanyahu's popularity plunges in the north. And is SpaceX really worth $1.75 trillion? This is Reuters World News, bringing you everything you need to know from the front lines in 10 minutes, 7 days a week. The House has voted to pull US troops from the conflict with Iran and end the war. And some of those votes came from inside President Donald Trump's own party. But it doesn't mean the war is over. The resolution now heads to a Republican-controlled Senate and eventually to Trump's desk. But as correspondent Jacob Bogage explains, it is a stunning rebuke.
The War Powers Resolution vote in the House signifies cratering support, not just popular support, but political support for President Donald Trump's continued war on Iran. This is far from a done deal. When it goes to the Senate, Donald Trump's Republican Party still controls the Senate. It has a very narrow majority, and this is going to be a key vote that's going to put a lot of people's political futures on the line. Do you cross President Trump to back popular sentiment? The other side of this is that Donald Trump could also veto this. There's almost no way it would become law. Donald Trump is as politically wounded as he has ever been in his time in public office. And it's because of the Iran war. And now he himself has entered a quagmire that even though he seems to say every few days, negotiations are going well, peace is right around the corner. Let's look at the facts. Peace is not around the corner and negotiations are not going well.
As a result of U.S.-led negotiations, Israel and Lebanon agreed to the implementation of a ceasefire.
State Department Chief of Staff Daniel Hollop, alongside negotiators for Israel and Lebanon, announced the two countries have agreed to a ceasefire. The ceasefire is contingent on Hezbollah stopping all attacks and evacuating all of its operatives from near the Israel border. The two sides already agreed last month to a ceasefire, but fighting continued. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, meanwhile, is facing intense criticism at home that he's bowing to the US. Most recently, President Trump told the Pod Force One podcast that in a phone call with Netanyahu, he called him crazy.
You said, are you effing crazy? What are you effing doing? I helped you stay out of jail. Is that true? Did you speak to him in those terms?
I did. I wouldn't say angry. I was a little bit perturbed at his constantly fighting with Lebanon.
In Israel, Netanyahu's critics are frustrated at what they say is the Prime Minister ceding sovereignty. Like Kiryat Shmona resident Moshe Yifrak. He voted for Netanyahu, but says it feels more like Donald Trump is running the country. That border town has seen support for Netanyahu's Likud party drop at 3 times the national rate, which could be an issue for Netanyahu, with elections expected as early as September. Emily Rose has been speaking with residents.
Some of them said, we feel forgotten, we feel unseen by this government. We even asked residents, what do you think about the ceasefire and reports of a ceasefire? They looked at me, they said, what ceasefire? Because even as I was interviewing someone, a mechanic who has a business here, his family has lived here for generations.
So that's
we had to run into a bomb
Trey
shelter.
1 done.
Okay, we literally had to stop the interview and run into a bomb shelter because there was a warning of an incoming drone alert ahead from Hezbollah. And he said that's been daily life, that residents here have had to feel the impact of that rocket fire, run and take shelter.
But the anger voters feel in Kiryat Shmona has not translated into a desire for de-escalation.
I asked residents, what do you want? What do you want to see happen? And they said that Hezbollah needs to be decimated completely. They call for more military actions against Hezbollah because they think that any ceasefire will give Hezbollah more time to arm and then attack them again.
California's governor's race is heading toward a November matchup the state has not seen in 15 years. A Republican versus a Democrat. Former Fox News host, Trump-backed Steve Hilton, leads the primary with around 28% of the vote, while Democrat and ex-Biden cabinet secretary Javier Becerra, who would be the state's first Latino-elected governor, trails at around 25%. Our national affairs reporter Daniel Trotter explains.
So it looks like we're going to have Hilton, a former Fox News host and former aide to British Prime Minister David Cameron, who's making his first run into elected politics. Now, in order for him to pull off a major upset and win in heavily Democratic California, he's going to have to figure out a way to charm Democratic voters. And the path to do that is fairly clear, that California does have its problems: homelessness, affordability, water. There are a number of crises that the Democrats have to own because they've been in charge of the state pretty much as a single party for the past 15 years. The Republicans face a very difficult battle just because Democrats outnumber them almost 2-to-1 among registered voters in the state. If there's a way for Steve Hilton to pull this off, he would really need to tap into some of the resentment that voters may have regarding some serious problems that exist in California. Otherwise, the math just makes it very, very difficult for him.
Have you ever, specifically in the context of the intelligence community, heard the name Bill Pulte?
In the context of intelligence?
That's what I said.
No, I have
never heard his name, okay.
Not the ringing endorsement former housing regulator Bill Pulte might have wanted from Secretary of State Marco Rubio on his first day as acting director of national intelligence. Rubio testifying before a congressional hearing Wednesday. And in a separate hearing, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent had this to say.
Did you actually tell Pulte you were going to punch him in the face?
No, sir. I actually said I was going to kick his ass.
Good. Okay, good.
Democrats and Republicans alike are criticizing Trump's pick, saying that Pulte has no national security experience and has used his housing post to push investigations into Trump's political opponents. SpaceX is expected to go public within weeks, and it's rewriting the IPO playbook. Elon Musk's rocket and satellite company is planning to set a fixed price on shares of $135. That puts the company on track to raise about $75 billion. And the company's aiming for a valuation of an eye-popping $1.75 trillion. But editor Echo Wang says that while the move signals confidence, it also raises the stakes, leaving some investors wondering if the company is worth that much.
There are some voices from investors saying that this is way too expensive at 1.75 trillion, right? People just cannot make the math work. How do you actually justify that big a valuation based on what the company has at the moment? XAI is very much a loss-making business, and then a lot of aspiration in the future. You don't really know if that will happen. For example, data center in space sounds great, but it's not something that you are going to achieve in the next year or two.
Still, Echo says there's something called the Musk premium that other investors won't put a price on.
His name is a household name. People know him. He has a huge fan base in the country and internationally. And then people believe in his track record of turning something into gold, like what he did, for example, to some extent with Tesla, and what he did with Starlink, and his aspirational ideas.
A flesh-eating screwworm has been found in a calf in Texas, the first case in the state in 60 years. The USDA says it's the only confirmed infestation in the country and has halted animal movement within a 12-mile radius to contain the parasite. It is a huge blow to US cattle ranchers who have been bracing for an outbreak as the pest advanced north through Mexico over the past year. The fly can infest people and pets as well, but the risk to humans is low and human cases are rare. For more on any of the stories from today, check out Reuters.com or the Reuters app. Don't forget to follow us on your favorite podcast player. If you're listening on a smart speaker, just ask for the latest news from Reuters 7 days a week. We'll be back tomorrow with our daily headline show.
The screw tape thing, I know it's because during the pandemic we stopped dropping infertile ones.
NewsHour. Now, a British teenager who exposed an illicit Russian cryptocurrency network has been sanctioned by Russia. Aged just 17, Alexander Browder is believed to be the youngest person ever to be targeted with sanctions by Moscow, and he joins us now. Good to see you on the program. So you're not going to be welcome in Russia anytime soon. Just explain to us exactly what it is you've exposed.
Yeah, so I've spent the last year and a half building the largest open source database of cryptocurrency money laundering. And what I discovered is that state-sanctioned actors heavily utilize cryptocurrency to launder their funds. And specifically, Russia has gone so far as to set up their own stablecoin for money laundering, something called A785. Now, my work has exposed A785 and exposed the enablers of it. And last month, 26 senior MPs and lords wrote to the foreign secretary to sanction the enablers behind the stablecoin. And last week, the government acted by sanctioning them. What was surprising to me is that a week later, yesterday, the Russian government sanctioned me. So it's clear that my work has touched a nerve and I'm looking in the right place.
Yeah, so you've certainly rattled the Russians. How did you find out that they'd sanctioned you?
Yeah, so it's a pretty funny story. So I'm in high school and I was sitting at the back of my economics class. I opened my laptop and I saw a Reuters headline stating that I was sanctioned. So it came as a surprise.
And how do you feel about it?
The sanctions don't intimidate me. It only emboldens me further. The Kremlin's message is that I should stop, but I'm only going to continue working to expose.
And this is all about the Russians trying to avoid Western sanctions, and they've been quite successful at it, as you found out.
Yeah.
Now
so,
we're moving.
The Russian stablecoin A785.
All the ones that I've stained but aren't dry enough for a polyurethane coating.
In illicit volumes only in 2025.
Ow.
So it's clearly
off of the table that I had them on.
And it's vital that the UK and the Allies put pressure on the enablers to take down the scheme and take down the broader Russian cryptocurrency money laundering operations.
And you've created this database, which means there's a lot more transparency now. It's a lot easier for people to find out exactly what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. So I built the global cryptocurrency laundering database because the world needs to understand how dirty money moves. And Russia's reaction shows that people would rather keep that hidden.
Are you going to carry on your work? What's next?
The bad actors are constantly dynamic and constantly developing. So I'm going to continue my work to shine light on this gray area and protect the West.
And of course, your dad is well known for being someone who has exposed Russian corruption over the years. He must be very proud of you. What's he had to say?
So, first of all, I'm very proud of him, but I'm biased. And I've always been around great human rights activists, politicians, and other people who are doing incredible work. And so I've always been convinced that I need to do something. So I'm glad that my work is having an impact. But my passion would be to achieve something similar to my father, or maybe more.
And you've been working with others as
Okay.
well, also been sanctioned, other British nationals.
So now,
Exactly. That there
we're
was
at the
five of us in
point.
total,
Why did my
including,
camera go off?
Including Catherine
Give me
Belton,
1
a
second.
journalist, and several other people. And so
That should
the
not
Russians'
be.
goal is to intimidate us and to try.
Why is my camera offline? It says it's online. Properties. Oop. There we go. I don't know why it did that. Huh. Odd. I don't know. But I now know I gotta get out a couple of things for the next step. I don't think we're gonna use that one or that one. So we get that out. Then we're going to change our material here. Because now what we'll be doing is polyurethaning everything that's already been polyurethane for a second coat to start with. Here we go. Then we give our polyurethane a good stir, a good stir, a good stir. We give our polyurethane a good stir, a good stir. Now we move our polyurethane right here to get done. Take a drink. And now I have to go get a stack. So 4, 8, 12, 16. And then we get this out. 16. Here we have some of the deep sea divers and domestic buddies. Now the polyurethane only gets coated on the top of each one. I'm thinking minimum of 2 coats on everything. I think maybe 3, just depending on the sheen. One row done. So there goes set 1, layer 2. Okay. Catitude and Forest Friends. Couple deep sea divers. Okay, here we go. Now set. 2. Layer 2. 4, 8, 12, 16. 16 at a time. Okay. Now that my camera's fixed.
And shut us down, but I'm not backing down, and neither.
On day 96 of the war, the United States and Iran have exchanged attacks on each other's facilities, which hasn't broken the ceasefire, but it certainly put it under a fair amount of strain. And when we look at where those attacks have taken place, it's quite an interesting pattern in a way. The United States, in the last couple of days, has hit Tehran, and they've hit Kharg Island, which is the oil terminal that the Iranians use. And the Iranians, more interestingly in a way, they've hit Bahrain, the naval base at Bahrain, which is the headquarters of the US Fifth Fleet, and also Kuwait Airport. They hit one of the terminal buildings. One person is dead, at least 64 are injured. That's a pretty major...
I love these owls.
What the
They're pretty
Iranians are doing
cute.
is indicating, I think, that they are still in the game militarily, and they will attack America's bases. This is what Ayatollah Khamenei had said. He said all these American bases must now be regarded as vulnerable by the Americans. The Iranians are trying to indicate that that is the case, even though not all of their missiles and drones actually get through. More interestingly, the attention recently has concentrated on Qesem Island. Now, Qesem Island is really important, as you can see, to the Strait of Hormuz. From Qesem Island, you can control the channel through the Strait of Hormuz itself. So what the Iranians are saying is that all of the ships that come through the Strait of Hormuz have got to actually take this route round either north or south of Larak Island before they get out of the straits themselves. Because the Iranians have mined the southern areas, they're making sure that everything goes through the northern area that they can control. And Qesem Island is really important to that. And one of the reasons that Qesem Island is so important is because it's a big place. It's the biggest of the islands in the Gulf. About 150,000 people live there. There are villages and small towns on it. It produces quite good fruit. It produces salt. There's lots of tourism. It's a very pleasant place. In the 19th century, at least one English Bible thought that it was the site of the original Garden of Eden. So it's a nice place to be. There are no Iranian Navy facilities on Qesem Island. but the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps has tunnels, lots of them, on Kesem Island. And in those tunnels, it is widely understood that they have drones, they have anti-ship missiles, they have launching facilities, they have miniature submarines, they have fast attack craft to swarm against against vessels passing through the Strait of Hormuz. And they've got radar sites on Kesem Island. In the last 36 hours, the Americans have hit what they say are radar facilities on the island. We've only got their word for it, but there's no reason to disbelieve it. And this is why Kesem Island is so important. Because of its situation, it's very easy for the Iranians to make the Strait of Hormuz dangerous. They don't have to physically block the straits to make them impassable. They simply have to make them dangerous. And with modern technologies operating from Kesem Island, they can do that very, very easily. Which is why, if there is a settlement of this war, as President Trump has indicated today that he thinks there will be very soon, it doesn't matter what they say about the Strait of Hormuz. They can put it all back the way it was before the end of February. It will never, ever really go back to the way it was before the end of February. Because the Iranians know, and the rest of us know, the world now knows, how easy it is for the Iranians to close the Strait of Hormuz at a moment's notice whenever they choose to do so. And that is a really important point for the rest of the world and for international law. International law is largely based on maritime law that evolved a couple of hundred years ago, which said that all ships were entitled to free passage in the seas of the world. That was fundamental to world trade. Look how many other straits there are in the world. If you just think about the number of vulnerable straits, there's the Taiwan Strait, very politically important. There's the Malacca Strait, very, very busy. In addition to the Hormuz Straits, there's the Bab el-Mandeb Strait at the foot of the Red Sea. There is the Bosphorus in Turkey into the Black Sea. There's the Straits of Gibraltar, even the English Channel, the Straits of Dover. Of course, there are canals as well. There's the Suez Canal and the Panama Canal off this map. Now, they're canals. They're not nature's gift to us. They were built by somebody. Somebody paid for them. They're owned by somebody, so the legal issues are a bit different. But in all of these other straits, there is now a question mark, because even if the Strait of Hormuz officially goes back to normal, it never will go back to normal. And if the Strait of Hormuz doesn't go back to normal, then nothing else will. And the fact is, what happens in the Strait of Hormuz in the next few years, at the end of this crisis.
I'm in St. Petersburg on the main street, and all along here, you see signs like this one. It means to let, and it's evidence of yet another business that has gone bust.
Across Russia, more than 200,000 small and medium-sized businesses closed their doors in the first 3 months of this year alone, as the cost of war in Ukraine piles up. Anastasia used to have 3 flower shops, but recently had to shut one because of growing costs and wilting demand.
Неприятно, очень больно.
Wilting, pun intended.
Сейчас нет точек роста никаких. Сейчас нет возможности. Ну, я не представляю такую возможность вообще. Никакой.
More of the Catitude Packs
3
and
раза
Savannah
у нас
Squad.
увеличились коммунальные платежи. Вот это к
Yep,
тому
yep.
списку, да, приколов. То есть надо быть немножечко умственно отсталым, чтобы сейчас быть предпринимателем в 2026 году.
In beauty salons too, things are far from pretty. A rise in VAT to help fund Russia's war has increased tax bills by as much as 80 times, and many can't survive. The industry predicts a third of its businesses will fold by the end of the year.
Я пережила кризис 2008 года, 2014 года, пандемию, мобилизацию, начало СВО. И я могу сказать, что такого кризиса, как сейчас, не было никогда. Это самый сложный период для российских предпринимателей.
Russia's invasion of Ukraine had previously helped grow its economy. Massive military spending outweighed the impact of Western sanctions. But after more than 4 years, it's getting harder to afford. Ukrainian drone strikes on Russian refineries are hitting the Kremlin's war chest, and the economy has begun to contract. The spike in oil prices due to war in the Middle East has given Moscow a boost, but experts warn it's not enough.
Russian economy is like a climber who's stuck above 8,000 meters. It is the altitude which mountaineers call the death zone. At this height, the human body cannot survive for long. It consumes itself faster than it can recover. And what we see with the war at the Gulf is that it provided Russian budget additional funding, additional oxygen, but it wasn't a game changer. So it's not brought this mountaineer from the death zone to the safe space.
And it's not just businesses seeking salvation, consumers are too.
Ну, на все, и на яйца, и на молоко, и на мясо, и на макароны, или на хлеб, на булку. Ну, все подорожало, все.
Ну, по ощущениям, процентов на 10-15 за последние, наверное, полгода.
Ну, естественно, хотелось, чтобы стало дешевле. А вообще, как говорила моя бабушка, чтобы война скорее закончилась.
The government argues the slowdown is to be expected and supposedly normal after a period of high growth. But there isn't much about Russia's economy that is normal anymore, and its problems are becoming difficult to ignore.
Today, the man who murdered Natalie has been held accountable for this calculated and brutal crime, a crime for which he has shown absolutely no remorse.
What is this about?
Stephen
YouTuber
McCullough
jailed for
went
murdering
to
pregnant
extraordinary
partner.
lengths to plan and carry out this callous domestic murder and to conceal his actions. He tried to create a false alibi by faking a social media live stream. He tried to point the finger of blame at an innocent person. He tried to portray himself as a grieving partner. Police and the prosecution team from the PPS, including our counsel team, worked together to deconstruct his lies and build an overwhelmingly strong case against him. The evidence included CCTV, other digital material, and witness testimony. This resulted in the jury's guilty verdict and the conclusion of this case today. I now want to turn my focus to Natalie's family. The respect and dignity they have shown is truly remarkable. I want to thank them for trusting us to get justice for Natalie. They have shown courage and resilience throughout. I also want to thank the Police Service of Northern Ireland for their thorough investigation. This includes the cybercrime unit experts who determined that the YouTube stream McCullough presented as live on the night of the murder had been pre-recorded. I want to commend the witnesses who bravely gave evidence in court and the jury for their service.
This was about a guy. Remember the... Do you remember... It was like around Christmas time. There was a streamer back maybe 2 years ago who like, oh, my chat's not working and I'm not going to be looking at chat. And he did like a 6-hour live stream. Come to find out his girlfriend was killed when he was supposedly live because he pre-recorded it and he was the one who killed her. Yeah. It was a huge news. I don't know how you like missed it. Because it's like, I heard about it through like Charlie and Mudahar. Because it was like, oh, look at this. The guys tried to use the internet as cover.
Murder was unprecedented in the level of planning and brutality by McCullough. However, violence against women and girls is all too common in our society. And it is the shame of our society. Domestic abuse in all its forms is a crime and should never be tolerated. Although women and girls are disproportionately affected, anyone can be a victim. I want to speak directly to those experiencing domestic abuse now. Please come forward. Talk to the police or confide in someone you trust. Help is available and there are organisations who can help you. If you decide to report abuse, you will be listened to and treated with respect. Where the evidence allows, the PPS will prosecute offenders robustly for all forms of domestic abuse. Thank you.
So remember I showed you the girl who did the Frida Kahlo,
Mhm.
and somebody had commented down here, and they said, "Where's the Salvador Dali?" And they said, "Challenge accepted." They actually did it.
Ridiculous. Now we're going to be moving on to the ones that we stained earlier tonight. Doing our next set of, this one will be first coat. We've got some Barnyard Besties, some Polar Patch in here.
Today, the man who...
Welcome back, Defenders. It's good to be back. Let's get caught up on the events from the last couple days. And the top story is, Ukraine strikes St. Petersburg oil terminal and naval base as Putin's Davos gets underway. This is the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, and this is Putin's favorite event every year. He holds it in his hometown of St. Petersburg, except this year there was a special guest appearance from the Firepoint Drone Company. So Ukraine launched drones on the first day of the conference. They attacked the port infrastructure, and this is about 10 kilometers away from where the economic forum is occurring. And as the delegates were arriving on day one, they could see smoke and fire in the distance from Ukraine's successful drone attacks on the port infrastructure. Specifically, what did Ukraine strike? And they struck a ship in dry dock, as well as the St. Petersburg oil terminal. Let's first cover the ship. And this is the Russian Baltic Fleet Corvette Project 20380. Ukraine immediately released the Firepoint drone video showing the successful strike, and they hit it with at least 2 drones. This is the first Firepoint drone going in, successfully struck, like the command deck. The second drone is going to come in and once again slam into the center of the ship. This is incredibly embarrassing for the Russians. And I don't know how this video leaked online, but a Russian sailor at the dry dock in the port filmed the Corvette on fire. This video is about 40 seconds. I'm going to play it for you guys.
Это пиздец просто. Нас ебало.
I can't imagine this was a Russian sailor who took this video, so it might have been a firefighter with the St. Petersburg firefighting department, but this looks really bad. This ship was in dry dock, undergoing repairs, and I think it's a complete loss. Here's the satellite image from this morning showing the firefighter crews continuing to dump water on it. So not only is there the fire damage, the smoke damage, but there's also now water damage. I'm pretty confident this ship is now a total loss. So let's update the bingo board, and this is no longer the Black Sea Fleet bingo board, because Ukraine is now striking ships in the Caspian Sea as well as the Baltic Sea. So Konstantin, the guy who updates this tracker, he's just adding ships anytime Ukraine continues to blow up something in the Russian Navy. But what about this oil terminal? Drones ignite Russian fuel hub on Gulf of Finland as Putin begins his economic forum. So this is a relatively small oil import and export terminal. The big ones are Primorsk and Ust-Luga. Those are on the one's on the west side of the city, the other's on the north side of the city. But this is in the proper St. Petersburg port area. I can zoom out so you can see exactly where this is located. And Ukraine successfully struck this place at least 9 times.
Oh.
This is Russia's second largest city on the first day of their very important international event, and at least 9 Ukrainian drones got through Russia's air defense systems to strike this valuable oil terminal. So I'm going to play this video, and you can feel the concussive force of these Firepoint drones slamming into these storage tanks.
Oh. Dang. Oof. Mother Russia's having a headache.
Wow. You can hear all the car alarms going off. Here's another closer video showing one of the storage tanks igniting. Huge fireball. Here's a satellite image of the day showing how big the fire was. This is what the delegates at the Economic Forum could see in the distance. The fire was put out within a day. We now have the satellite before and after image. This is the before, and then this is the after. The account Okogora did an analysis of what tanks were damaged, and at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tanks were partially damaged, and 1 was completely destroyed. But Ukraine has proven they can get through St. Petersburg air defense systems, and they can strike this place. So something tells me Ukraine is going to visit this place again until all these storage tanks are gone. The funniest part about all this is, of course, the St. Petersburg airport had to shut down during the drone attack because this is the first day of the Economic Forum. Delegates were still arriving, but all air traffic was redirected and delegates couldn't get in for the first day of the event. Here's an observation from Tender. You know what is very interesting? I watched dozens of these videos of the Ukrainian operation in St. Petersburg, and not in one of them can I hear an air raid alarm. In other Russian cities, this would be triggered, but not in Putin's precious home city, as if somebody is very cautious not to spoil the SPIEF 2026 party. So is Putin gonna show up at his own event? Short on growth ideas, Putin hosts the 5th wartime Russian Davos. The purpose of this event is to attract foreign investment and get international investors excited about Russian technology, Russian innovation, Russian design. But Russia's economy currently is in shambles. The government of Russia is just paying influencers to come to the event and film anything to generate buzz and excitement for Russia, when domestically they have nothing going on. They are not leading in any development or innovation concerning AI or anything that people are generally excited about to invest in. And Putin loves to speak at this event. He's always on the main stage as the keynote speaker, but I don't think he's going to do that this year. As I'm trying to film this video, he's currently meeting with reporters, he's taking questions, and he's saying some pretty insane stuff. He said, we don't have the translations yet, but he said that the Oreshnik missile has not been used in combat against Ukraine yet. This is a lie. Russia has launched 3 of these Oreshnik missiles against Ukrainian cities, but of course they're not carrying a nuclear weapon. So I think in Putin's mind, it doesn't really count because they were just testing how the missile dummy warheads would fall on cities. Therefore, it's not an actual combat use because there wasn't a nuclear detonation. But Putin is saying basically, the war is almost over. Russia is about to win. There's no need to worry or concern yourselves. Ukraine is basically defeated. This is what Putin is saying, but it's not what Putin's advisors are saying. This is a fascinating clip from Andrei Bezrukov. He's an advisor to Rosneft CEO Igor Sechin. Igor Sechin is one of Putin's most important oligarchs. And this is what he's saying at the St. Petersburg Economic Forum about how everyone in Russia needs to get used to the idea of Russia being at war. And Russia is probably going to be at war for decades to come. This must be addressed now. First of all, we have to acknowledge that for the next several years, and perhaps even a couple of decades, we will be living in a state of war. It may become a very intense war, like the one we're experiencing now, or it could be a creeping war. And even if it spreads to other regions, we will have two generations that can be considered essentially at war. We need to learn how to live with this war. That does not mean stopping everything, halting economic development, or shutting everything down. On the contrary, we need to build our state institutions and our economy in such a way that they serve not only the purpose of development, but also the purpose of defense. The next challenge is strikes on critical infrastructure. We already understand that almost any region of the country can now be reached, and that a strike can hit precisely where it is intended to.
After I'm done with
is already
this,
a
Trey,
serious
I think we'll
problem for
take a
us today.
15-minute break because
Yeah, Ukraine's long-range drones are
I
messing
need to
up
let
Russia's
the other
industries.
ones set for a little
Russia doesn't
bit
have a
before I can
solution,
go on and do a
and they
second
can't
tow.
survive decades of these long-range strikes. So Ukraine has to continue doing good work. Ukraine strikes Russia's Ilsky oil refinery for at least the 16th time in the last 4 years. The Ilsky refinery is located in Krasnodar. This is east of Crimea. And we do have a video showing a massive fire in the distance. We don't have any pictures or videos close up, what it looks like, but NASA's firm fire damage confirmed there was a large fire there after a successful strike. So let's go to the bingo board. And it's been a while, guys, since we've done an update, but this is the Ilsky refinery. It's only 400 kilometers from Ukraine's territory, produces 6.6 million tons. My assumption is this refinery is providing refined oil products for Russia's frontline forces, which is why Ukraine is focusing on it so much. More bad news for Russia. Ukraine strikes Russian patrol ship in the Sea of Azov. This is just one of your daily compilations of Russia
Here we
losing
are.
very important stuff.
Everything now has
So the
one
first
tow.
thing to
We're
get
going to need
hits
to wait
in this
about
video,
15 minutes
let's fast forward a little bit.
for
This is Project
the first
10410.
tow on the ones that
This
I
is
did
a patrol ship that was being used in the Sea of Azov. And Ukraine
first
struck
to
it with
be
a
done.
Firepoint drone while it was
So
in motion.
I'm going to pause our video
wasn't docked,
and then
it
we're
was
going to go
moving.
to
That's impressive.
break for
And
a
you can see
little,
from this
for
video,
about
there's at
15
least
minutes.
3 crew members.
For your
Asian share markets tumbled on Friday as investors took.
There is currently not.
As of today, there has been one.
In Herzog.
SpaceX's web.
The afternoon on Coruscant Wade on
What if Luke Skywalker time traveled to join the
I awoke with the grain in my palm and the chisel at rest. A plank on the bench and a knot in its chest. The kettle sang thin while the daylight spread, and I laid out my colours like a deck of cards red. Ash in the board, oak in the flame, pine for the frame, and a nick in my name. Then the first strike rang, then the second one too, like the whole room knew what my hands came to do. One for the sawdust, two for the stain, three for the brush and the breath through the grain, four for the resin, clear as rain. Count it out, say it again. One for the sawdust, two for the stain, three for the brush and the breath through the grain, four for the resin, clear as rain. Say it loud, say it again.
Back again with these are getting their second coat, third coat actually on these ones, and then I got a second coat the other ones. You know, is this enough of a sheen? Do I like this? Because these ones might not need another coat. I like how these ones turned out. They're not tacky. I think for tonight we're just going to wait and do the three sets that need their first coat, their second coat. So these ones are going to go back on the table. Okay. So I think today's stream is going to be kind of short compared to lately. There's not much left to do. Especially considering I realize I don't need to do a third coat, only a second. So let's get the second coat down. Dragon, unicorn, giving them their shine. Griffin, penguin, Okay. So that's these ones done. Tray number 2 of 3. For the second coat. Ah. Okay, second tray is done. Now third and final tray. You work at 10:30, right, my love? I'm gonna miss you tonight. Bed's gonna be mighty empty. Might have to stay up all night playing games and wait for you to come home in the morning. What? Oh, I thought you said do it. And so there goes the polyurethane brush because it'll never be good again. And on that note, guys, I'm going to say good night. shorter stream than I was anticipating because I was thinking everything would need an extra coat. But I think we're good. So I guess I will see you guys tomorrow maybe for a gaming stream. Because this project is done and in the barrel now. Check out our Etsy store in the next couple of days. We'll have these up for sale there. I think that about covers it. You guys have a good night.
And the breath through the grain, fall for the resin.